All right, what's up, everyone? Welcome to this week's episode of the Franchise Empire newsletter. I have Mr. Mark Magerman with me. Welcome.
Hi, guys. Hi, Tarek.
Thanks for joining. Let me share my screen. And today, ladies and gentlemen, we've got a good one. We've got a really exciting newsletter for you guys today. So we're going to cover the franchise of the week as a service franchise that shows 33% margins in their FDD, which is pretty wild. There is a resale that's in Florida, rare, that shows 1.6 million in annual sales. It's got a 7-figure price tag as well, which is a good thing. We'll talk about that in a little bit. If you're someone who is still kind of thinking, hey, is franchising even the route that I want to go? Is it for me? We've got a quick story for you and kind of blurb that you might be able to relate to. And then we'll talk about our latest episode of the Zero to Profitable Franchise podcast. We just renamed it, so I had to think about it for a second. But real quick, before we dive in, Mark, I'm going to have you do this every week, probably for the next, 6 or 8 weeks. Would you give like a 30, 60-second introduction on you and your background and what it is that you do?
Happy to. I've been in the franchise brokerage world now for about 5 years, and I've been working with Tarek and Franchise Empire for, going on 6 months, 5 months. Very short period of time, but seems like a long time because we're having so much fun together. Prior to me becoming a broker, and the reason I became a broker was really on the heels of my experience as a franchisee, as a franchise owner. Aging myself a little bit, but back in 2006, my partner and I became franchisees for a brand. I guess I can say the brand, correct?
Yeah, of course. Yep.
It's Five Guys Burgers and Fries, which when I tell people that story, I get a smile from them because they look at me like, yeah, what a no-brainer, Five Guys Burgers and Fries. I mean, who wouldn't do that? But the reality is when we got involved with them, they weren't what they are today. And they had just started franchising outside of their home-based area. So it was a huge risk on our part, but we invested in a territory to build 20 restaurants. There was no such thing as a franchise empire back then. So there were people that could guide us, which kind of gave us the opportunity to make every stinking mistake we could possibly make, and then came up with a few that we didn't know we could make. But it was good because we had to work ourselves through it, and we had to rely on our franchisor partner and all the things that required to become successful as a franchisee we had to do. So I thought that, and some of my colleagues guided me once we sold our business, which we sold it very lucratively in 2019, that my story could be compelling and help other people become franchise owners. So I took the advice of people smarter than me and got into brokerage. And then Tarek and I met back in the early fall, and love what Franchise Empire is doing. So I figured let's join them. And that's why we're on the call today. So happy to be here. That's a little bit of my story.
Boom. Rock and rolling. So more of the story, guys, is Mark has been very successful. He knows a lot about franchising. He leads and heads our brokerage team, and makes these newsletters now more fun and exciting to do. So we'll lead in. We'll talk about first our featured resale. So it's one of my favorite brands. Not really much opportunity to get into a new territory. There's some new territories available, but it's Budget Blinds, and Budget Blinds has been around for a really long time. Mark, do you want to just kind of talk about just Budget Blinds as a whole, and then we can kind of dive into this specific resale?
Sure. They've been around for a while. I think they were established in 1996. And Tarek's absolutely right. It's a great category for franchise owners. First of all, it's in the home service category, which is really popular. Relatively inexpensive compared to some other franchise brands, but very simple concept, very high margin, very easy to scale. But again, with the case of Budget Blinds, they've been around so successfully that most of the country has been sold and purchased by franchisees. So when one of these resales becomes available, it's usually a robust opportunity for somebody because, again, people can't get into the brand from a new territory standpoint. And they've got a lot of successful owners. I got a funny story. One of my colleague franchisees at Five Guys, a bordering franchisee, hired a director of operations who was really good. It was a restaurant guy. And ultimately, they sold the business and he went off. I didn't know what he did and found out he's actually running a bunch of blinds out in Providence, Rhode Island. So you don't have to have any type of experience in the industry to be really successful in home services. And he's got, I think, 3 territories in Providence and doing really well. So just a great brand.
Oh, he became a franchisee with them.
He's a franchisee with them, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow, cool.
He left Five Guys and they sold the business, and he had a little money from his experience there, and he wanted to stay in franchising and didn't go into food, went into home services and found budget blinds. So very successful. And if anybody on the call is looking into getting into franchising or resale specifically, this is one of the brands that I think you'd want to really look into.
100%. By the way, guys, before we dive into all the numbers of the resale and all the details, for those of you watching, if you can hit the like button. So this takes hours, by the way, to put together. Believe it or not, this newsletter, finding the resales, which one to highlight, putting it all together. It's completely free to you. The only thing we ask is just hit the like button, whether you're watching on YouTube or LinkedIn or Facebook, and it helps the video to get more exposure and picked up by the algorithm. I genuinely appreciate it. Thank you. And for those of you who don't get this email in your inbox on Sunday mornings, then you can go to franchiseempire.com/newsletter to make sure that you get these emails. And so, Mark, how about this? I'll talk through kind of the points on it, and then we can dialogue through that afterwards for the budget blinds one.
You got it,
guys. So this is for sale in Boca. If you guys aren't familiar with kind of Florida, Boca is known to be a pretty affluent and wealthy area in Florida. By the way, actually, one of our Bridget and I's go-to spots as a treat, if we're treating ourselves or celebrating something, is the Boca Raton, which is like a resort hotel. It's pretty epic, very nice. It's like the quality of like a Ritz-Carlton, Four Seasons. But so this is for sale in Boca. And so what's interesting, the owner is currently semi-absentee already in this business. Now, take that with a grain of salt. But, with an established business, it's definitely more possible than if you are opening up from scratch. But the reason why they're selling, right, because everyone always wants to know, well, if someone's making money in their business, why would they sell? Well, number one, because that's most entrepreneurs' goals and dreams, to one day sell their business. And just like why you have a house that you've loved and lived in and you've sold, or why you have a car that you've enjoyed and you've sold. Life circumstances and situations change, and when they do, you sell something. But they're included in this business. There is a manager. There is a manager that's running the business. There's a salesperson and an installer, and this includes 3 territories, by the way. So the asking price is $1.18 million. I did talk to Budget Blinds, and they said that the business is currently going through an updated valuation based on their most recent financials. So the price could change. I assume they were saying that to me in the sense that it could go up. I don't know that they were saying that in the manner of price could go down. But just a forewarning, if you're someone that does wind up reaching out to us to, get connected to this resale, if all of a sudden it's 1.38, like I warned you. And at the information that we had was the annual sales are at 1.6 million a year. And so these are rare opportunities, guys. Mark is known to be quite skeptical over resales, which is good for good reason. Do you want to talk about that? Why in general you have a little bit more of a skeptical lens towards resales? You want to talk about that point?
Yeah. The asterisk though is with a brand like Budget Blinds, I'm less adamant against them because there's no other ways to getting involved with the brand, right?
Yeah.
However, when we sold our Five Guys business, and I'll just tell this little tangent story. I say this to all my candidates looking at resales. You just got to kind of be, it's very trepidatious. So we actually hired a company that was going to sell our business for us. By the franchise agreement, we had to go to the franchisor and let them know we were selling. The franchisor is definitely involved in the sales process. They have to approve owners. And anyway, within 24 hours, they came back with a list of 25 Five Guys franchisees that wanted to buy us out. So we never needed the merger and acquisition firm. We found a buyer right within the family of networks, and we sold it to one of our fellow franchisees. So from that point on, I always keep asking myself, when a resale from a franchise resale becomes available, why did it get out into the public marketplace? Why didn't other franchisees buy it? And there's obviously good reasons for it. For maybe example where it's the franchisee maybe doesn't have any bordering other franchisees, so that's why they're selling it. There are reasons, but I just like to work with people just to be skeptical as to what the reason is, because a real good barometer for a real strong franchise is when other franchisees buy out other franchisees. So it's just something you got to be cautious with on resales. And the other point on resales, I don't know if I'm premature in making this point, Tarek, but the competition for these is very, very great. So we're at Franchise Empire, and we're presenting this to you folks. It's being presented to dozens and dozens and dozens of other brokers around the country who's presenting them with their candidates. So my recommendation is, if you are interested in a resale and you want to get in touch with us and get our help, please make sure that you can relatively quickly get approved for the funding that you're going to need. Because if you drag your feet on funding with a brand like this, you're just going to snooze and lose. Because I promise you, somebody who really wants this business is coming. They're meeting with the franchise seller, and they have a note saying they're approved for financing day one. Just a couple of points on resales.
100%, all spot on. And so, what Mark has shared a bunch of times is that what happens in the resale world and franchises, a lot of times some of the best deals get scooped up before they ever hit the public market. But sometimes you have franchisees where they don't want to take on more. They're just content. They're happy. They're like, hey, I'm running my business. I don't want to double the size of my business and employees. And, believe it or not, there's people that are just like, I'm good. And so, but a couple of things before I started hitting on our take already of that this is a rare opportunity. This often, these sort of opportunities don't hit the public market. I actually have a good friend of mine who's out in California. Him and his business partner, they now own, I think it's 11 territories of budget blinds. They've been slowly acquiring neighboring franchisees, 1 to 2 territories at a time since 2016. The reason how Adam and I met, his name is Adam Berryman, just great guy. I've had him on the podcast a couple times. Adam and I met because he had bought supercuts before he had gotten into budget blinds, and so his supercuts was right next door to my franchise, the very first one that I opened. But they're doing really, really well. They're one of those ones that do acquire neighboring franchisees. And I don't know that I've ever really shared this publicly, but Bridget and I, my wife and I, we actually attempted to buy a budget blinds resale about 12 to 18 months ago. And in the middle of the process of putting in the offer, the owner came to us and said, hey, I need to cancel our meeting. I'm like, why? What happened? She's like, yeah, we already agreed to a deal with our neighboring franchisee. And so, they had so sometimes these deals do hit the market, and then all of a sudden a franchisee, scoops it up. So I just wanted to share that story just for 2 reasons. How highly I think of kind of budget blinds as a system and kind of their resales. And number 2, to just double down on Mark's point, which is you generally have to move quick. And the way that, in case you're wondering how funding works for resales, typically you can get away with just putting 10% down. It depends upon your own financial situation and the finances of the business and what the cash flow of the business can support in terms of a debt payment. But basically, if you can put down 100 grand, I think 20% would be better, but somewhere between 100 and 200 grand, you can finance the remaining amount for that business. So I'll just kind of speed through some of these items here. So even though it's they're doing 1.6 million in sales, there's a lot of upside potential because in the 2023 FDD, owners with 3 or more territories averaged 2.7 million in sales. So this, according to that number, would be underperforming. Right now, we don't know. It says 3 or more territories, so we don't know what the average is in terms of territories owned. But there's still some meat on the bone here to grow this business. And to what kind of Mark was just talking about and some of the other points around, this is an empire building opportunity because let's say you come in and buy this with 3 territories. There are other franchisees, I know that for a fact, that are in the surrounding territories. And at some point they may look to retire, and then you can buy them out. And all of a sudden, fast forward 5 years down the road, you have a franchise system. Well, not 3 territories, but maybe 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 or 10. The other point is that, Budget Blinds is very well known. They're I would consider them a household name, particularly in that category. They're really the biggest name in that category, and they spend 10 million a year, or almost 10 million a year, to generate new business for franchise owners, and they drove over 400,000 leads through that, which is pretty wild. Last but not least is they're part of Home Franchise Concepts, which is the parent company that owns other service-related home brands. And so there's the opportunity to connect with other owners, get referrals from them, and or you buy some of their complementary businesses as well. So if you're interested in learning more about this specific resale, getting introduced to the sellers, then you can go to franchiseempire.com/resales, and we can get you connected. And if you're just interested in resales in general, you can go there. Okay, let's talk about a new franchise owner. Mark, I'll take this one, and then I'll have you hit the franchise of the week. So every week that we do this newsletter, we like to celebrate the people that matter the most, and that's you, the new franchise buyer, prospective franchise buyer, right? All of this is all about helping you guys achieve your goals of, owning a business and becoming an owner. And so Joshua was one that worked with our team. He had owned a photography studio, but his landlord had increased his rent prices astronomically, which sometimes happens if you don't have options to renew in your lease. So lesson, always have as many options as you can so that you don't have, you can, maybe just get the 3% increase and have that locked in. Anyways, he decided he wanted to look for his next challenge. And so he reached out to us. And when we had our first meeting with him, he was still trying to figure out, probably like many of you guys, hey, do I even want to do this franchise thing? Like, is this the route that I want to go? Because really, there's only one way to find out, which is to actually get to have a process of understanding brands that meet your criteria, right? And then getting introduced and talking to those brands. Once you start having a conversation with some of those brands, you'll know pretty quickly, I like franchising, and I don't like franchising. And so that's the best way to find out. And so that's what he did. And he turned out, his mindset was, hey, actually, this is what I want to do. And so our team wound up narrowing down to a handful of franchises that fit his criteria. And less than 90 days later, he pulled the trigger on a Window Genie franchise. And you can go to our website. This hyperlinks there to Franchise Empire. Basically, if you go to Franchise Empire and you go to Find a Franchise, you'll be able to take a look at some different franchises there and request more info. But anyways, congratulations to Joshua. Very exciting. And yeah, really exciting, actually. With that said, let's talk about the franchise of the week, the business with 33% margins, which is, drum roll please, I will pass it to Mark, because Mark knows a lot about this brand, very educated on it.
Yeah, Rolling Suds is a very unique opportunity. Again, I've been in the franchising world for a while, as is Tarek, and you don't see too many brands that come into the industry and take off like these guys do. And I can go on for a long time, but just for time's sake, one of the things that I love the most about this brand, as somebody whose job it is to introduce candidates to the brand, is everybody from the CEO on down to the franchise development folks have this belief that they are not going to be successful as a company unless the franchisee network is going to be successful. So everything that they do from a corporate standpoint is geared toward eliminating obstacles that stand in the way of the franchise owners, so the franchise owners can come in and build their businesses very thoroughly and very aggressively. That doesn't mean that they do the job of the franchise owners. That's exactly the opposite. They just make it so the franchise owners can do their jobs. And it's a power washing business, for the love of God. That's all they do is power washing. It's residential and it's commercial. The franchisor helps you get large national accounts on top of that. And there's a great story. I think if you follow LinkedIn, if you follow Rolling Suds, I think I'm right about this, Tarek, that the franchisee out in New Orleans got the bid for their Rolling Suds franchisee to actually do the power wash of the Superdome before the Super Bowl game last month. So, I mean, this is the kind of leverage, the kind of business that these franchisees are getting. They have high expectations of their franchisees. They have a 2-territory minimum. And that's not because they want people to spend more money. It's because they want people to invest in opportunities that are going to allow them to scale to 3, 4, 5, 6 vehicles over the time of a year or two to grow this business up into $1 million or $2 million business. The CEO of this company, his name is Aaron Harper. His goal when he invested in Rolling Suds, which Rolling Suds was an existing business for the last 30 years. It was a family-owned business that the owners never had any intention of being franchisees or franchisors, but they ran this amazing business. Aaron, who is a franchisee at heart, found the business. They leveraged together. Aaron invested in Rolling Suds. The family is still involved and still own their territory. And I don't have the latest numbers, and I know the FDD comes out, but they've sold over 170 territories, Tarek, in 2 years, which is about as aggressive as I've ever seen, or maybe it's even a larger number than that now. But they're at a point where it's conceivable that at the end of 2025, they're going to be sold out in the country. They're just really attracting people who are empire builders. They do it right. They have high expectations of the franchise owners. And if you really want to get into franchising a business that you can honestly see 2 years down the road, 3 years down the road, being multi-million dollars, this is the business for you. They just do everything right.
Yeah. And they seem to attract really, really caliber candidates. We've had I'm trying to think. I think we've had 2 people that have pulled the trigger on Rolling Suds, and I know one of them. They're in this franchisee mastermind we do, and they're experienced. The wife Julie is an experienced entrepreneur. They've run, I think, senior living homes. The husband Greg, he was in recruiting and sales for a while. Was like a top performer, and so they're involved in the business together, and they're just a powerhouse. And so it's just I've seen some of the caliber of
that's really who they're looking for, Tarek, and that kind of matches the profile that they're looking for in a franchise candidate. And they seem to be doing a good job of finding them.
Mark, can you talk about both the role of the owner as well as
Yes.
the type of candidates that they're looking for?
It's a great point, because even though they're looking for tremendously successful people to come in and build very successful businesses, it is definitely not a semi-absentee business. That's a curse word in the Rolling Suds vernacular, right? They're looking for owners who are going to devote 100% of their time on the business. Now, if you're very well financed and very well experienced, they may allow you to bring in maybe a 10% equity partner as a manager to run that business. That's very rare. And when I ask them the question, how many of their franchisees do that? It's a very low number. So they do that because it's very critically important to Rolling Suds that the franchisee network thrives, and they can't afford to have one franchisee not pick up the ball and run with it. So again, their network is only as strong as the weakest link. So they're saying, you want to come in here and build a business, we need your full-time attention to it, which is significant because they're not going to, if you can't devote full-time attention, they'll just move on to the next candidate. So that's important to know. The role of the franchisee, because they're going to help you, support you on so many different levels, that I kind of like to call this my three-legged stool, which the reason I use that analogy is if you have a three-legged stool and one of the legs breaks, the whole stool crumbles. And these are the three legs of the stool that a franchisee needs to accept that they need to succeed in to work in this franchise, really all the home service franchises. But it's the ability to hire, train, retain, and develop a team of technicians. So that's your role. They'll help you vet and find these people, but it's your business. You'll be hiring these folks. They'll train you on how to become the mayor of your community, local marketing. They'll support you with national marketing and branding and search engine optimization and everything you can think of, but they're not going to come into your territory and contact the local Little League for sponsorships, or they're not going to come into your territory and go to the local BNI networking meeting. That's on the franchise owner to build the name brand recognition in the local community, because what we know about franchising is even if it's a national franchise with hundreds of franchisees, in your hometown, you are the local provider. So you need to create that local name for yourself in the market. And three is they may get appointment setting for you. They may have a call center. They may actually fill your calendar with appointments, but they're not coming into your territory and knocking on the doors and selling the service, getting the customer to commit to it, and most importantly, following up to make sure the customer is satisfied and getting those 5-star reviews. So that's the third. So team building, local marketing, and sales and customer service. That is all. If you can do those three things and you combine with how they support you on a corporate level, that's how these franchisees are really soaring and growing. And growing in this business means adding vehicles to your arsenal.
I love it. And I'm really impressed, Mark, that we're going to show the numbers and talk about just high level. These are just a snippet of what's in their FDD. But I love that they've been able to grow as fast as they have by being very upfront about wanting owner operators. Right. Which is interesting because there's a lot of franchises that grow fast through telling people that, oh no, yeah, keep your job and you can do it semi-absentee and you'll be fine, and which is a bit of a pipe dream.
It is, and not only that, but they're attracting high-level businessmen and women who are very successful, who for the most part you would think would be like, I'm not going to get involved in rolling up my sleeves and power washing, but they are, because that's the only way to become.
But they're not doing the actual power washing.
They're not doing the power washing, yeah. But they also believe that because of their experience, they can hire a whole team of people and they don't even have to be involved. And Rolling Suds would say, sorry, that's just not what we're looking for. So these business owners saying, all right, well, I want to be in, so I'll play by your rules, which, as we know, following a playbook is really critical to being a successful franchisee. And a funny little story, I'm not going to, this is kind of premature, but we're dealing with some professionals in the Portland, Oregon area who are now talking about buying the entire state of Oregon. So this is, we're not talking about one territory or two territories. These people see it as a tremendous opportunity. So that's the beauty of Rolling Suds right there. It's a dream that people are actually seeing come to realization.
Boom. So, Marco, and what we did, we just cut the top line and bottom line, so it probably shows different than you're used to seeing it in the FDD. But do you want to just kind of talk about, you can talk as much specifics or as little specifics about the numbers as you want, but do you want to just kind of talk about what they disclose in the FTD and the financial opportunity as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, are people actually seeing what's on the screen now, Tarek?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. If you just look at the numbers from 2019 through 2020, when we had the pandemic, through last year, these numbers are just, they're averaging $2 million per territory gross revenue. And most of these franchisees have only been at it for 1 or 2 years anyway. So that's just an amazing number that you don't get to see in the home services related field. And you see what the
But to be
total
fair, Mark, I think this is only for the corporate unit though, right? Is that what they disclose in their FTD? I think it's only the corporate unit.
I think, I'm sorry, this has to be because they didn't have the locations operating for 12 months. I apologize. So this is the corporate unit that the gentleman who owned in Philadelphia. I'm really sorry. Actually, the FDD that comes out this year might actually be able to still have the first set of franchisee numbers because they've been there. So this is, so kind of forget what I had just said, but it's still significant that this business, it did take a dip during the pandemic, but then it came out really, really strong, 2.2 to 2 million. But look at the EBITDA profit numbers, 33%, 36%, 37%. I laugh when we used to run our Five Guys business. Each of our restaurants, if they did 9% margin, we were running to the bank thinking we accomplished something amazing. And these businesses are 4 and 5 times the profit. So again, what kind of business can you get into where you've got the playbook given to you with leadership that understands so well how important it is to support the franchisees? And then, oh, by the way, you can run this business at over 30% margin. Tell me what of those bullet points I just gave you is going to make you not want to do this.
100%. I love it. Mark always speaks with a lot of passion. Mark, we only have a few minutes left. Can you just kind of speed through some of the benefits for the franchisee?
Yeah, I'm not going to read all of this because I've read it before and I kind of have my little elevator pitch on it. But really, their advantage. They are a national brand, but they have a local tone to it. In other words, the people who they do business for don't look at them as a national; they look at them as local. But what gives them an advantage is their trucks, which are beautiful, have twice the amount of water, twice the amount of hoses, 2 technicians per one that the competitors have. So they're able to do jobs very efficiently, very quickly, and move on to the next to increase the volume. But I think what's the coolest thing that they do is they have this proprietary relationship with this company called Alpha Drones. And I was actually fortunate enough to go down to Nashville last year and actually see this in action. But this company actually, you can rent these drones that have the capability of soft washing 12-story high buildings. So this is for the commercial end of the business. They don't need scaffoldings. They don't need ladders. They don't need to put their employees at all this risk. These drones do the work for you in a very efficient manner. Yeah, it costs money to get the drones, but the margins are far in excess of what the costs are. So it's like they kind of call it like an Uber-like experience for the customers because it's gives them all of these opportunities that Rolling Suds provides to the customers that are invisible to the customers, but not to the franchisees. So that plus the fact that they have a call center that's booking appointments for you, which is pretty standard in the home service business, but the commercial lead generation, I think, makes these guys stand out because not only do they allow you to call on commercial businesses, some brands don't, but they actually generate these leads for you. And the other last thing I'll say about this brand that I think is really also very unique is the way they train people. Oh, you got that up here now. I didn't know you were going to even show this, Tarek. But typically there's an 8 or 10 week period of time from the time you become a franchise owner and sign an agreement to the time you actually have your business up and running for these service brands. And most brands will bring you out to the corporate office in the first week and train you and then send you back into your territory, and they'll provide a coach and you'll do all the checklist items that are going to get you up and running your business, 8 weeks later. What Rolling Suds said is that's kind of inverted. Let's do it differently. Let's bring our people out into the territory to support our franchisees in the first 8 weeks of the program. And then in the 9th week, we're going to bring our franchisee in for training. And by doing that, when they leave that training in that 9th week, they have a manager hired, the truck ready to go, businesses on the books, their business is up and running the day after they leave training when everything's fresh. So they've kind of inverted it, and it seems to be just allowing these franchisees to hit the ground completely running. That I think is really turning the industry kind of on its ears in terms of training. I wouldn't be surprised if more brands go to that model. And I saw the slide you just had on the screen, which is what how they support the franchisees in the first 9 months. But really, the service of the franchisee extends far past that grand opening period of time. It's 24/7.
Boom. Some really great points. And then last but not least, they, in their business, there's recurring revenue. It's always a fantastic business model when you can have recurring revenue and can help in the exit valuation one day down the road. Businesses that have recurring revenue tend to be more valuable. And you're looking at just an unskilled labor pool. There's no licenses needed for the work. Like, we have clients that have bought electrical franchises, plumbing franchises. I mean, there's nothing wrong with those, but you're fishing in a very specific labor pool of people that have those licenses or certifications, right? And in this work overall, and there could be a caveat maybe in a state or two, but outside of that, you can choose from an unskilled labor pool. So,
and you only need 2 people to get started. You get two folks hired, and your truck ready to go, and you are cooking with gas pretty much right out of the gate. You don't need to do anything more. So it's beautiful when you watch these franchisees get up and running quickly, and their eyes are wide open. They're like, "Oh wow, I didn't even know that I can get it done this quickly." But again, the systems are set up so franchisees can ramp up, follow the plan, but see success early, which contributes to the excitement of the brand and keeps people focused and fired up as they go.
Fantastic. Hey guys, so if you want to find out if this specific franchise is available in your market and for us to check the territory, you go to franchiseempire.com/check territory. If you are financially qualified and meet the franchisor's qualifications, then we can get the ball rolling for you to check. And if you're just thinking, hey, I want to not only find out about this specific franchise, but what are brands that align with my goals and my specific criteria that could be available in my market, we'll be able to cross that bridge as well. And you would be speaking directly to Mark, by the way, depending upon when you're watching this video. Actually, if you're watching this video a month from now, you probably won't be talking to Mark. You'll probably be talking to someone else. But
the other point I want to just add what you just said is sometimes, if a brand like Rolling Suds is not available in your area, or a brand that's not available, we know that there may be another brand or 2 in the same category that are really just as good, and we can introduce you to those. And please don't make the mistake of utilizing your Google search as your source for finding franchises, because that's got a lot of horror stories attached to it. Give us a ring, get on our calendar for 15 minutes, and we can start the process. Love to talk to you.
Well said points. Ladies and gentlemen, last but not least, look at this goofy looking guy when he didn't have a beard. I gotta get an updated picture on there. But the last episode of the Zero to Profitable Franchise podcast, we talk about a franchise that generates $16 million a year. It's a tech franchise, and we dive into a resale opportunity. You can watch these episodes on our Franchise Empire YouTube channel. The Franchise Empire YouTube channel is type Franchise Empire on YouTube, subscribe to that channel, or any audio platform or podcast platform where you listen to podcasts. We've got some exciting podcasts coming out. We've got a bunch of podcasts coming out with clients of ours that are now franchise owners, sharing their journey, sharing their story, mistakes they've made, kind of what's worked, etc. And we're going to be doing more solo kind of podcasts as well, and eventually, once we can free up some time for Mark, we'll do some podcasts with Mark too. He's a busy guy, which is good. So All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in today, and we will. Oh, next week we are changing the day and time. We are going to be switching these live newsletters to Mondays. So we are going to start doing these on Mondays, no longer on Fridays. I mean, on Wednesdays. My goodness,
Easy for
it's
you
going
to
to be
say. Easy for you to say, Tarek.
It's going to be Mondays at 3 p.m. Eastern, I believe. But we'll send out the details to you guys. So, anyways, have a great rest of your day. Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, everybody.